name is Arthur Chamberlain, and I'm the project manager of the Transit System Routing Group. So the other teammates include Lucas Boucher, Ernest Troy, Andrew Wynn, Samantha Wynn, and Kevin Wilson. And so the overall objective of our group is to determine the routes that, for the buses that are proposed for Joshua Tree National Park, as well as the bus characteristics that would use each alternative. And so first we would start off with Lucas and Samantha, who would go over the different route alternatives and their stops and things like that, followed by Andrew, who would be estimating the ridership based on similar parks. Kevin would use that data to determine the daily demand, and finally Ernest will use that to determine the headway and the number of buses for each alternative. So first off is Lucas with the first alternative.
Our team used data from both the UCI Visitor Demand Survey as well as the 2010 Joshua Tree Visitor Demand Survey to come up with 3 routing alternatives for Joshua Tree National Park. Results from these surveys gave us the 5 most popular slots for the parks, which include the Joshua Tree Visitor Center, Hidden Valley, Marker Dam, Jumbo Rocks, and Keysview. We made sure to include stops at each of these 5 locations within each of our 3 alternatives. So alternative 1 consists of 3 radial routes: the blue line, purple line, and the yellow line. The blue line starts at Joshua Tree Visitor Center, goes down Park Boulevard to hit Hidden Valley and Marker Dam. At Hidden Valley, there's a transfer stop to allow visitors to transfer onto each of the 3 routes. The purple line runs exclusively between Hidden Valley and Keysview. Purple line is about 7.2 miles long and it takes 16 minutes to travel 1 way by bus. The yellow line travels between Hidden Valley and Cholla Cactus Garden and also stops at Ryan Mountain, Jumbo Rocks, and Arch Rocks in between. The yellow line is about 22 miles long and takes 36 minutes to travel. And now Samantha will talk about alternatives 2 and 3.
Thank you, Lucas. Our objective for alternative 2 was to capture the visitors coming in from the west entrance and the north entrance. The blue and the purple line are exactly the same as alternative 1, however, the yellow line will head up to the Oasis Visitor Center instead of going down to the Cholla Cactus Garden. The yellow line is approximately 20 miles long and takes about 32 minutes. Alternative consists of 2 routes, however, it's the most expensive of all of our alternative as it runs from the northwest side of the park to the southeast side of the park. The blue line is at Joshua Tree Visitor Center and then down to Hidden Valley, where visitors have the option of continuing their route to Keysview or hopping onto the purple line to the Cholla Cactus Garden. During the spring wildflower season, the purple line will actually be extended to the Cottonwood Visitor Center to allow visitors to experience the wildflowers in the Pinto basins during the spring. The purple line, including the main season, is about 42 miles and about an hour and 10 minutes. Next, Andrew will be talking about Joshua Tree and its sister parks.
In order to estimate the park ridership data for Joshua Tree National Park in 2014, we decided to perform a sister park analysis. So using the 2009 Grand TV National Park public transit business plan, we were able to calculate ridership data for a variety of national parks. However, for the purpose of the study, we wanted to focus on the national parks that had ridership data available and that had services that were free and voluntary. So as you can see on this chart, Acadia National Park and Rocky Mountain National Park were the only 2 that fulfilled that criteria. And so after that, we researched what factors and components were really significant in designing the public transit system. And we found out that some categories that were really significant are the group size of visitors, the group type of visitors, and the activity types of those visitors. So using visitor surveys from the University of Idaho Park Studies Unit, we were able to collect the data and compare each national park to one another and Joshua Tree. So first, we looked at group type, and group type was split into friends and family, alone, friends, and family. So as you can see based on the graph, overall, Rocky Mountain National Park was very similar to Joshua Tree, so we decided to use that data. For group size, we split, you can see that from the data that a majority of groups that came into any of the national parks was approximately 2. And also from this graph, you can see that Rocky Mountain National Park was very similar to Joshua Tree. And for activity type, there were a variety of differences between the activities done at each national park, but for the purpose of the study, we found out that Rocky Mountain National Park was, again, very similar to Joshua Tree. So this is a summary table of the percent differences between certain categories that we also analyzed, and some other categories that we looked at were the percentage of international visitors and visitor hoarding. So using this table, we were able to create a weight demand matrix, and from that matrix, we found a score. And from that weighted score, we found out that Rocky Mountain National Park was actually very similar to Joshua Tree in this perspective. So using the available Rocky Mountain National Park visitation data, we were able to find ridership percentage by dividing the total number of riders annually divided by the number of visitors annually. So after we found all the ridership percentages for all those years, we were able to create a model. And from that model, we were able to predict ridership data for 2014. And so ultimately, we found that Rocky Mountain National Park in 2014 would have a predicted percent ridership of approximately 18.5%. However, we did understand that Joshua Tree National Park and Rocky Mountain National Park are not exactly the same park. So we added a 3.5%, which came from our research, to accommodate for certain differences such as land size or land use. And next, Kevin's going to talk about daily limit.
So the table on the left shows the annual visitation for Joshua Tree National Park provided by the National Park Services, or NPS. NPS can only give us data for up to 2012. So we used linear regression to find the data for 2014, which in this case was 1.457 million people. The graph on the right shows our trend line for the data. Here we have the list of the 8 most popular attractions at Joshua Tree National Park, as well as their visitation rates. This was provided by the 2010 visitor survey. We applied these rates with the annual visitation to find the annual visitation of the attraction. Then we used the visitation data provided by the Joshua Tree National Park Services to find the peak month, week, and day. The transportation planning process for transit in federal land management areas calls for a 90th percentile peak day, for example, which is what we have 2 columns on the right. Lastly, we would need a maximum load point, or the maximum hourly demand. We got this data from the February transit study that UCI conducted at Joshua Tree National Park, and we were able to find a maximum load point. Now, Paris will talk about headways.
Thank you, Kevin. So in order to determine the headways and the number of buses that we needed 2 key information. So the first one is the maximum load point that Kevin talked about, which is basically just the peak ridership that the route will experience throughout the course of the day. And the second one is the seating capacity, which is used to design for the comfort of the passengers and to attract more riders to the transit system. And so once we have those 2 once we have that data, we're able to determine the headways from this table down here. And so on the left, you can see that there's the passengers per hour, which is the maximum load point, and the top of the headways. And based on that, there's a certain requirement for seating on a bus. However, since we are designing for the 90th percentile, we decided that having passengers that are above the seating capacity is okay, because we are still at least the maximum overall capacity. So here's the summary table of the maximum load points, the seating requirements, and the number of buses and headways. The headways on this right here are calculated based on the numbers that Sam and Lucas determined for the travel times. And then from that, we're able to determine the number of buses, which the final numbers on the right here. So Arthur will conclude our presentation.
Thank you, Dennis. So basically, from this information, along with the information with the other groups such as cost, we will be able to determine a final alternative that we will present to Joshua Tree National Park. Thank you.
So, very nice presentation, Ken. I have a question about the alternatives. I noticed that they're coming from different locations. They're not really alternatives, it looks like. Wouldn't the alternatives be more of covering all of the areas that you want to have the transit service and then have different alternatives of it? Is that thought?
actually, if you don't mind, just go to one of those alternatives, whichever are the three alternatives. Because I had some questions too that are somewhat related to what you're asking and pointing at this. So this is, let's say this is alternative 1, but within this alternative there's 3 colors. What do the 3 colors represent again?
There's 3 routes. So one bus would cover the one would go back and forth on the blue line. The second one would
Because I missed that too. Okay. And then how did you come up with those travel times? I'm guessing you didn't drive a bus through there.
Well, we would find using Google Maps, we would find the distance, and then about the speed of the bus, which was around 40 miles an hour. And right there to get the travel time.
So does that include stoppage time? I mean, do you know roughly what points they would be stopping at and things like offload time?
The points they would be stopping at are indicated on the black diamonds. It does not account for stopping time.
And I have a couple more questions on the sources of some of your data. You said that all of your visitor type and your visitor activity data, where did you get those from?
So we got those from visitor surveys done by the University of Idaho, and they had like an online server where you could look at a variety of visitor surveys from dates varying. And for this study, we used the most recent, so the majority of the reports came from 2011 to 2001.
And then follow-up question. You said that you use a 3.5% adjustment between the 2 parks. I missed the part where did that adjustment come from? How did you come about that?
So the adjustment came from the fact that we realized that Rocky Mountain National Park and Joshua Tree National Park are not 100% alike. There are certain differences in location and size. Like we found that Joshua Tree was a lot larger. So based on the research that we did in other categories, we found that around 3.5% would account for certain differences between the 2 national parks.
You need to expand on that a little bit more.
How does a number at 3.5% compare to the 17 and 22 that you had on there?
So when I looked through because I also compared a lot of other national parks too, like looking through those, and I compared the ridership data between each national park along with the size and the other certain characteristics.
Okay, so that percent adjustment is just based solely on ridership and characteristics of the park?
Mm-hmm.
And then you mentioned the UCI February transit study. It was one of your sources for data?
Oh, so that study, in February, we came out to Joshua Tree National Park, and for 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, we counted all the license plate numbers at the parking lots of the 5 most popular sites. And from that, we were able to find the distribution of hourly visits. So we would know which hour had the most visits.
That seems like a lot of work that wasn't at all mentioned.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay, that's all right. That would help too. And then of the 3 alternatives, 3 or 4 alternatives that you looked at, what was your final recommendation? Because there was no final slide that said.
Or is that a different presentation?
This was all.
Okay.
It's just part of the work.
Okay. Because we're not there yet. Was one of your tasks to identify the preferred alternative?
So we came up with the 3 preferred alternatives because we can't really choose one until we have other factors such as cost.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Did you guys take into account any of the survey results, the visitor survey results from the other group, or did you just use something?
We did. Headways from the survey is passengers or the people who took the survey specified that they didn't want to take a bus if the headways were more than 30 minutes apart. So we tried, when we decided our headways, we made it all less than 30 minutes if possible.
So about the visitors, information like which sites are the most visited based on survey results.
It looked like your analysis in terms of the number of buses, I think, is based on saying the bus route. Did you look at the possibility of using small buses and increasing some of those?
We did, but we decided, because there's so many people, I think the maximum number was 200 something. So when we decided to choose on a bus, any smaller buses we would require to have
the ridership of Rocky Mountain National Park. They're looking for a license. It was the one that had a sharp jolt in the rock.
Yeah.
How do you explain that graph for Rocky Mountain?
So I would have to be honest, I'm not 100% sure, but I would have to look
Maybe we have
back.
60 down, 60 down. Is this one of the parks that can be closed down because of the federal government? Problem there? No, I don't know.
I'm not 100% sure, so I would have to look back, go through the survey data, but
That could have been a situation where there was a drastic change in the park, because then it starts looking up again. So the actual curve might be much higher if it wasn't for that interruption in the norm system.
that will be something I would look into for further analysis.
A follow-up question, what kind of regression did you use this?
So for this one, we tried a variety of regressions. We went from linear to exponential, and found out the best fit regression for this data was actually a power regression.
Yeah, but I guess the R square won't be that good for the
Our score was approximately 0.63, so it was a little tough.
It's not that bad. Okay, yeah. So actually another question is that we need to determine the headway of buses, and I believe you use the demand data, but did you break up this, break down this demand data to all those different locations along the routes, or you have those detailed data for each route, for example, for each alternative, for each route, for each bus, each route, what would be the demand level? Do you guys have those data?
There is a certain demand for certain locations that we determine as the most popular location. So on the right here are the maximum load points for those locations.
Okay, so you guys do have the data. Yeah, then another thing is that it looks like, this data, you got a lot of those data from other parts. It looks there's certain overlap with the demand survey and demand study. This should also be considered as demand study. Yeah, so,
It doesn't comment.
yeah, that's a kind of comment. It looks like you guys have been covering a lot of topics in this one presentation.
Yeah, very good point. There's a lot of material
Yeah.
in there. Now, in your ridership forecasting, did you guys take into account the travel time of the bus compared to the travel time if I was to drive my own vehicle on that route? Ridership forecasting.
So when we were determining the headways, we used the travel times that Lucas and Sam provided, and then we also added in the time it takes for stopping.
But that's for headway, right? Did you say?
Yes.
How about for your ridership forecasting?
So for that, I would have to look into the survey because the surveys we used gave us raw data as this is the number of riders and this is the number of visitors. So I guess looking into it, we did not account for that.
Okay.
So that's something that we could look for into.